Hello students, welcome to my channel Biology Foundation. This is part 3 of Unit 1 Life on Earth, Grade 6 CBSE or ICSE. So in the last two classes we discussed in detail the characteristics that differentiate a living or an animate from a non-living thing or an inanimate object. So let's summarize and then solve few fill in the blanks multiple choice questions and true or false along with match the following. Okay. So let's summarize whatever we learned in this unit 1. So basically living organisms, they are made up of cells, and the term cell is given by Robert Hooke. Hope you remember, the credit should be given to Robert Hooke. He first observed these cells from oak tree. Okay, I'm sorry, not plant, oak tree. So basically, all living organisms are made up of cells, and we also studied about organisms having a single cell. They are said to be unicellular, while organisms having many cells, they are considered or grouped under multicellular organisms. Whereas non-living things do not have any cells. Okay, and the presence of cells can be observed under a microscope. And I have also discussed the two experiments that can be done to observe your plant cells using an onion peel or animal cells using human cheeks scrapings. That's what we have seen, right? Now, the second difference is they need food for energy, right? We perform we show the process of nutrition. That means we need food for our survival, where the food that we eat is digested, it is broken down into simple compounds to liberate energy, where this energy is utilized to perform various activities. But for pebbles, rocks, chairs, suitcase, there is no need of any food for their survival. So they do not eat any food. Okay. Next, growth is seen in living organisms, where this growth is basically internal growth that occurs mainly due to cell division, and the growth that takes place in living organisms is irreversible. You can never find an old man again coming back to his stage where he is baby, right? Until and unless it's some movie or you time travel. But usually, we all know that we can't go back to the stage where we were as a baby or as a toddler, or your dog can now can't go back to a puppy stage, right? So growth is irreversible, and the growth that occurs in human beings is due to changes that are happening internally, right? And that's because of cell division and cell elongation. And non-living things, some non-living things grow in size, and that's because of external deposition of materials. Now mountains, they grow in size because of the external deposition of soil and other particles. But when I'm talking about growth in living organisms, that's because of certain changes that are happening internally. Okay. Next difference is about movement. We have talked about this as well, where animals, human beings, they move from one place to another in search of food, for shelter, or to protect themselves from predators. Where in animals or in human beings, we call it as locomotion, right? But plants do not move from one place to another. That doesn't mean that plants are not living things. Plants do show movement. They are rooted within the same space, but still we see that leaves show movement. Certain plants, the leaves show movement, and the stem starts moving towards the light. Roots always uh, grow downwards into the soil. So that's about movement. Whereas such kind of movement can be observed even in non-living things, but by external source of energy. Now a rock cannot move by itself. I need to if there is a man or a woman who is pushing, that means there is an external source of energy for the movement of the inanimate object. Okay. Next is response to stimuli. Stimulus is any change in the external internal environment. Like for example, you feel like when you have this hunger signal in your body, that's when you feel like that you want to eat, or you feel you are very hungry that you want to eat food. Or when you have this, if there is any change in your body or there is a signal in your body that you are thirsty, that means where the amount of water in your body is less, you start feeling the feeling thirsty, right? Where you want to drink water. So your body starts responding to any change that happens internally, not only internally, even externally. If you remember yesterday, I gave you the example where if your mother is giving you a cup of hot tea or coffee or maybe milk, and you just grabbed the cup, not noticing that it was hot, immediately what would you do? You would withdraw your hands, right? So basically, this response that you're showing to either any external change or internal change is called stimulus. Okay, so living organisms respond to stimuli, unlike non-living things. If you take a pebble and throw it in fire, will it react? Obviously no, right? So there is no response seen in inanimate objects. Living organisms, they reproduce and give rise to offspring. Offspring means children. But the term children is used for human beings. But when I say offspring, it can be used for plants, animals, microorganisms. Okay, and they reproduce to give organisms of the same kind. A monkey gives rise to a monkey only, not a dog or a cat. Okay, that's what I mean to say. Reproduce to give offspring of the same kind. Whereas inanimate objects do not show reproduction. And when we studied about reproduction, I talked about oviparous animals, as the name suggests, ova, ovi means egg producing, and viviparous, where these organisms, they directly give birth to young ones. Okay, and living organisms, they show the process of excretion. That means once you eat food, not entirely the 100% food that you eat gets converted into energy. Some waste substances will be generated. Now these waste substances that are generated in your body should not be built up. They need to be cleaned and they need to be removed out of the body, and that is excretion basically. So this excretion can take place using the organs, like you have in some organisms you have kidneys, lungs. Okay, even through skin, certain substances like your sweat, which is a waste substance, gets released from your skin, right? Lungs, they help in purifying your air so that carbon dioxide gets exhaled from your body. Kidneys help in purification of your blood. Okay, but there's no such process of excretion seen in non living things. Next, respiration. What is meant by respiration? If you remember, I told you, students, that it's quite important that you identify or understand the difference between respiration and breathing. When I say breathing, it is also known as external respiration. Breathing is also called as external respiration. So, breathing is just taking in oxygen, giving out carbon dioxide. Just simple inhalation and exhalation is breathing. But when I say respiration, what does that mean? The food that you eat, when it is oxidized or when it is combined with oxygen, it generates carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Okay, this energy is what we utilize for various activities, to perform. The time you get up till you sleep, there are n number of activities that we perform. So energy is generated through respiration process. Okay, and no such respiration process is observed in inanimate objects. Living objects, they show they have a definite lifespan where they grow and eventually they die. But inanimate objects, there's no such lifespan. If you buy a new chair today and if you break its leg, or by accident if something hits onto the chair, then there is a chance that you can't reuse it, right? Or if you place a chair in a room for around 5 years without touching, still it's as it is. Maybe there would be some dust or dirt onto it. But if you place a pot of plant for 60 days in a dark room without not providing it with enough or sufficient amount of sunlight, or you're not providing it with nutrients or water, obviously it dies, right? So there's definite lifespan seen in living organisms or in the inanimate objects, while in inanimate objects or non-living things, there's no such lifespan seen. What do you mean by lifespan? When I say lifespan, it is the time between birth and death. Between birth and death. Okay, and it varies from species to species. Okay, and we have even discussed the example of redwood trees of California, which can survive for around 2000 years. Okay, so let's understand even differences between plants and animals. Okay, though plants and animals both are living organisms, they are living things, but they do show some differences. We know that plants are autotrophs. When I discussed about nutrition, I said there are different modes of nutrition where there can be autotrophic, living organisms can be autotrophic or they can be heterotrophic. And I say autotrophs, plants can synthesize their own food, auto, self, they can prepare their own food use because plants have a specific green color pigment, chlorophyll. Okay, utilizing the solar energy, that is sun, taking in carbon dioxide and the water that we provide. And what is the structure that helps in the exchange of gases in plants? Stomata. Okay, these are just like the nostrils. So these stomata help in exchange of gases. So using chlorophyll, plants can synthesize their own food. This process is called photosynthesis. Animals, unlike animals, they cannot prepare their own food. They depend on plants for their food. Hence, they are called consumers or heterotrophs. Plants are also called producers. Okay, and plants do show movement, but it is different from animals. They move from one place to another, hence that movement is said to be locomotion. Whereas plants, the movement is different. That means they are rooted in the same place, but still they show movement. Where the stem goes towards the sun, leaves sometimes they show movement upon touch, roots always go downwards. Okay, exceptions, there are some exceptions in certain plants where mangroves, in these plants the usually roots go downwards right into the soil, but in mangroves the roots go upward. For example, if this is the trunk of the tree, you can see that in mangroves the roots grow above. So exceptions are seen, but usually, but most of the plants roots grow deep into the soil. Okay, hence they are said to be gravitropic. But there are few exceptions, like your mangroves, where the roots grow upwards. Okay. Next is reproduction. Plants, they reproduce either by seeds or spores, which is seen in ferns. Okay. Here, animals, I told you just now, if they give rise to give birth to young ones, we use the term viviparous. They lay eggs, we use the term viviparous. Plants, the growth occurs throughout their lifetime. Okay, that's because of presence of specialized cells in them known as meristematic cells. What are these meristematic cells? These cells continuously divide. Okay, their function is to continuously divide. Because of the presence of meristematic cells, a plant continuously divides throughout its lifetime till the time it uh, until its death. Till then, like, the plant continuously divides because of this presence of meristematic cells. But in animals, that's not the case. Maybe you might have seen like, as you are now, you are in grade 6 now, 6 to 8, you can see that slowly there will be certain changes in your body. You start growing in your height, your voice changes. So basically, you can see that active changes take place in your body. Active growth occurs during a certain period of time. Okay, but once you reach an age of after your teens, then there is no chance that you grow to more height. Okay, so only during this age around 6 to 10, like 6 to grade 10, you find certain changes that's happening in your body, and even you grow in height, your voice changes. uh, so basically in animals we find that growth occurs, but this growth is limited only to certain period of time. But in plants, growth occurs indefinitely throughout their lifetime. That's because of special kinds of cells present in them known as the meristematic cells, which continuously divide. Okay. So I hope it's clear, where we discussed the difference, what are the characteristics that differentiate living and non-living organisms, and how plants are different from animals. Now let's start solving few questions. Okay, quite simple, just based on whatever you learned, to just test your understanding and to test your memory. Okay, living beings are made up of, they're all, any living organism is made up of cell, and inside a cell you have a round spherical structure. You find, what is it called? Nucleus. I hope you remember. And the jelly like substance that you find inside a cell is called as protoplasm. If you remember, I compared the cell to a watermelon and the protoplasm to be the juicy part in your watermelon, right? Okay, so the jelly like semi liquid substance present in a cell is known as protoplasm. Okay, an organism made up of single cell is unicellular organism. Can we just discuss the examples of unicellular organisms? If you remember, amoeba, your bacteria, chlamydomonas. And when I discussed about chlamydomonas, do you remember I told that these chlamydomonas have two flagella which help in movement of the chlamydomonas, right? Removal of waste from the body is known as excretion. It is the process where waste substances are removed from the body. Organisms that can make their own food are called as, either you can use the term producers or autotrophs. Are all plants autotrophs? No, there are few exceptions. If you remember, when I was teaching in my first video, I gave you example of Rafflesia and Cuscuta, right? I'm sorry, Cuscuta and Rafflesia, where they depend on other plants for their survival. Animals depend on plants for their food and are called heterotrophs. They don't have chlorophyll pigment in them and hence they depend on plants for their survival, or they are also called as consumers, right? Green plants can manufacture their own food because they have a green pigment which is known as chlorophyll, a special pigment present in them. Green plants can trap dash energy to prepare their food. Sun provides you with which energy? Solar energy. Okay. Living beings respond to stimulus. What is stimulus? It is basically any change that happens internally or externally. That change, you call it as stimulus, and plants or animals they respond to this stimulus. Lifespan of an organism is the time between its birth to death. And is it the same for all organisms? No, it's quite different from species to species. For monkeys, it's different. For rats, it's quite different, right? On oxidation, oxidation means upon addition of oxygen, okay, to food. So when food is mixed with oxygen, it produces what? Carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And what is this process called, students? Respiration. And where is this energy being utilized? For performing various kinds of activities. And this carbon dioxide is being exhaled out. And what about the water that is being produced? It is being utilized for various reactions that take place inside the cell. Okay. The movement from one place to another, so movement of organisms from one place to another, is known as locomotion. Okay. In human beings, excess water along with salts are removed in the form of urine. If you remember, I told you that in animals, like in human beings, urine, sweat, and solid waste, that is your stool or feces, these are the waste substances. Whereas in plants, carbon dioxide, gums, resins, these are the waste substances that are released, right? So, okay, next bit, write true or false against the following statements. Growth is unlimited in plants. Yes, this is true. Why is it so? Reason, that's because of presence of special kinds of cells known as meristematic cells which continuously divide, right? Animals are autotrophs. No, the statement is false. Either you can correct it as plants are autotrophs, or you can correct it as animals are heterotrophs. Okay, because animals do not have the chlorophyll pigment, they are heterotrophs, or plants are autotrophs because of presence of chlorophyll. Removal of waste from the body is called nutrition. No, it's called excretion. Or you can correct the statement. So this is false. What is nutrition? It is the process where the food that we eat gives you energy, and this energy is utilized for performing various activities. Okay, amoeba is a single cell organism. True. Sorry. Yes, it is a unicellular organism. Lungs, kidneys are excretory organs in animals. True. Right? Okay. Okay, the last bit. Match the terms with their meanings. So here you have column 1. Sorry, I forgot to mention column 2. Okay. So, what is reproduction? It is a process where organisms give birth to young ones or they lay eggs to produce their own kind, right? So, producing more organisms of their own kind, that is reproduction, excretion, removal of waste, stimulus, any change in the environment. Either it can be external change or it can be internal change. Okay. Life processes. What are life process? Activities that happen inside a cell. So, activities that sustain life, like respiration, excretion, nutrition, all these are life processes. Okay. What is external respiration? It is also known as breathing, if you remember. In the previous slide, I have discussed. Okay. External respiration or breathing both mean the same, inhalation or exhalation. Okay. So, taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Okay. Cell, it is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Nutrition gives us energy to perform various activities. Autotrophs, green plants, because they have chlorophyll in them. Any plant that has chlorophyll can perform photosynthesis by capturing solar energy to produce like its own food. Okay, so therefore, green plants are autotrophs, or they can also be considered as producers. But not all green plants. Please remember, most plants are photosynthetic. Sorry, not all plants are photosynthetic, like your Rafflesia and Cuscuta. They depend on other plants for their food. Okay, so in today's video, we just summarized whatever we learned in the last two classes. Uh, and today we summarized or differentiated, or we just briefly discussed the differences between living and non-living things. And then we discussed within living things what are the differences shown by plants and animals, what are the characteristics that differentiate plants and animals. And based on our understanding of unit 1, life on earth, we have seen fill in the blanks, true or false, and even match the terms. Okay, so any doubts, please feel free to comment down below. And if you like my content, please do like, share, subscribe to my channel. Yeah, please do watch the previous videos if you haven't watched them yet before watching this. Okay, any doubts, please let me know. Bye bye. Have a good day.